Well, greetings to you all, friends. My name is Chaplain Matt Dinkins, and I serve as chaplain at Matthews Glen. I've been thinking about the parables of Jesus that are found in the Gospel of Matthew recently, and I want to share one with you from Matthew chapter 13. This is the parable of the mustard seed. He put before them another parable. The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed that someone took and sowed in his field. It is the smallest of all the seeds, but when it has grown, it is the greatest of shrubs and becomes a tree, so that the birds of the air come and make nests in its branches. Does that sound familiar? It's a pretty well-known parable. It's one I heard a lot as a child growing up. I remember my mother gave me a little mustard seed in a little packet to illustrate how large that plant can grow as it becomes bigger. And of course, that's the idea that we see here, is that the kingdom of heaven is like that. It starts out as something small and it becomes something very big over time. One other way to think about this to add to that understanding is that a mustard plant in Jesus' day and time was actually considered a weed. It was not a desirable plant to have amongst all of your other more desirable plants. And so if you had that large mustard plant growing amongst your other ones, you wanted to get rid of it. And I think Jesus knew that when he was saying this, and I think he was also trying to illustrate that the kingdom is not always this perfect, pretty thing. It's made up of people who are not perfect. It does not always go in a perfect straight line like you want it to. And there's a humility to the kingdom of heaven. I think about something that illustrates this so well for me. I heard a lecture a few years ago at my old seminary, and the professor that was speaking showed us a picture of a snapping turtle. And if you've ever encountered a snapping turtle, one, I hate to say it, but they're pretty ugly animals. Let's just face it, they are. And two, they're mean. They're mean. You don't want to put a finger near one or you might lose it. Well, this particular snapping turtle had the misfortune of having a small plastic ring that had come off a plastic bottle that had become wrapped around it as a hatchling. And so when it grew into a fully sized turtle, or at least grew more into a full-sized turtle, they grow for quite a bit of time. This poor turtle had become shaped like a figure 8 because that ring had stayed stuck around the middle of its shell. And Brian cut the ring off, and the hope was that the turtle would grow to normal proportions again. But that would take years, if not decades, for it to regain that shape. And friends, that's what this parable tells us, that the kingdom of heaven is something that starts out small, but it grows over time. And it's not always pretty. It's not always what we want it to be, just like that snapping turtle. I think about my work with children. Outside of my community, I do a lot of discipling work with children at my local church. And, that work is not always what I would like it to be, at least in the moment. The children don't always listen. Sometimes I have to discipline them. But I remind myself that this is a long-term investment, that I'm planting seeds right now that will take bloom later in their lives, and that it won't be a pretty thing always. There won't always be a nice, pretty image of them sitting still and listening to me and doing everything I ask. That's just not how it works, right? Friends, that's what it's like. That's what the kingdom of heaven is like, and that's what Jesus tells us in this parable. And so I just encourage you in your own work that you are doing to grow the kingdom, just be reminded of those things, that what you do, each little small thing you're doing is helping to grow it, and it will take time. It may not always go how you want, But don't give up, because what you're doing, God values. I want to leave that with you today as a challenge and encouragement. And I just wish you all a blessed day.